Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, June 26, 2026. I'm Ed Kavik, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, ARRL Field Day is this weekend. We've also got the 13 Colonies special event starting on July 1st. Ham Radio Friedrichshafen is this weekend as well. And a new technician question pool takes effect on July 1st, 2026. We'll also talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, talk about some upcoming contests, and take a look at interesting online radio content. As always, links to all reference content can be found in the show notes or at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. The biggest event in amateur radio is happening this weekend on June 27th to 28th. The ARRL predicts over 31,000 amateurs will be setting up to test their skills and preparedness in this popular annual operating event. MVARC will be operating at a new location this year as a 4A station on the grounds of Inova Mount Vernon Hospital at 2501 Parkers Lane, Alexandria, Virginia, 22306. We'll head over to the site after our monthly breakfast to start setting up. In addition to our 4 primary stations, we plan on having a Get on the Air station or Go to station to allow for those without a license or those who haven't been active on the air to have some fun in the bands with the assistance of our club members. We'll also have our club picnic on Saturday evening at 6 p.m. on the Field Day site with the presentation of our MVARC Member of the Year Award. If you're able to make it, we'd love to have you join us. ARRL Field Day is a special event that many consider to be amateur radio's open house. As the ARRL says on its site, amateurs, quote, set up temporary transmitting stations in public places to demonstrate ham radio science, skill, and service to our communities and our nation. It combines public service, emergency preparedness, community outreach, and technical skills in a single event. Field Day has been an annual event since 1933 and remains the most popular event in ham radio. The event is not technically a contest, but rather an operating event. That said, scores are kept and standings are published in QST. The objective is to make as many contacts as possible in the operating period, June 27th to 28th, 2026. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Time to 3:59 p.m. Eastern Time. All non-work bands are fair game. That's 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters on HF, and 6 meters and above on VHF, UHF bands. 1 point is awarded for each phone QSO and 2 points for each CW and digital QSO. There are also lots of bonus points to be had for things like operating a Get on the Air or Go to station, operating on VHF, message passing, working satellites, and public outreach. The exchange for the event is ARRL section, event category, and operating class. For the MVARC station running as a 4 transmitter category in the A class, that's club, non-club, portable, our exchange would be 4 Alpha, Victor Alpha. Other classes include A, battery, which is limited to 5 watts. B, for 1 or 2 person portable, there's also a battery option for 5 watts or less. C for mobile stations, D for home stations, E for home stations under emergency power, and F for stations at an emergency operations center. Field Day is a whole lot of fun, and the big part of the excitement is being out with your fellow amateurs. I heartily recommend finding a local field day to stop by and visit, and if you're in Alexandria, Virginia area, come join MVARC. A field day locator site can be found at arrl.org/field-day-locator. Even if you stay home, run a Class D or Class E station and see how many stations you can get in the log. More information can be found at arrl.org/field-day. We hope to see you out in the field and on the air. Good luck. The 18th annual 13 Colonies special event starts on Wednesday, July 1st, 2026. This event seems to get more and more popular each year, so get ready to break some pileups and collect the colonies to make a clean sweep. The event has operating stations for each of the 13 original colonies, each with its own 1x1 call. So K2A in New York, K2B in Virginia, K2C in Rhode Island, K2D in Connecticut, K2E in Delaware, K2F in Maryland, K2G in Georgia, K2H in Massachusetts, K2I in New Jersey, K2J in North Carolina, K2K in New Hampshire, K2L in South Carolina, and K2M in Pennsylvania. There are also bonus stations available for GB13COL in the United Kingdom, TM13COL in France, and WM3PEN in Philadelphia. The event is staffed by volunteers in each of the states, and it can be a fun challenge to see if you can get them in the log. If you do find one of the stations, they ask you to give them a spot on DX Summit at dxsummit.fi, which is also a great place to find spots for the stations that you need. The event tends to be very active on CW and sideband, and may also be on Iridium Digital. Activity will be on all bands, including the WARC bands, except for 60 meters. I hope to make a clean sweep again this year on CW, and I always enjoy this event. Each of the stations has special QSL cards you can send off for if you make contact, and you can apply for a certificate for the event as well. More information about the event can be found at 13colonies.us. Good luck. This weekend brings the Ham Radio Friedrichshafen International Amateur Radio Exhibition in Germany. It is Europe's largest ham fest and features exhibitors, lectures, and a flea market. This year's theme is Discover the Sky, Amateur Radio Meets Astronomy, and they will have an Astro Trade Fair being held simultaneously, dedicated to astronomy, astrophotography, and modern observation technology. As one of the largest ham fests in the world, there are often new product announcements made, so we'll be watching to see what develops this weekend. For more information, visit hamradio-friedrichshafen.com. The latest technician class question pool is set to take effect July 1st, 2026. The new pool has 409 questions, down from the previous pool's 412, and features 3 diagrams used in some questions. The pool will be valid from 2026 to 2030 and will be in the 6th edition of the ARRL Ham Radio License Manual, being released this month. The technician and all other question pools can be accessed at ncvec.org. For more information, visit a link in the show notes. And now let's take a look at some MVARC Nets on the air. We have the 2-meter FM net Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater. That is immediately followed by our 2-meter digital net on the same frequency with Yaesu System Fusion C4 FM. Then on the weekends, we have the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable on Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. and 3.565 megahertz CW, and also the Cherry Tree Net on Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. on 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where there's always great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. One note for this week, due to Field Day, we will not be having the 2 HF nets this weekend. And now it's time to take a look at what is happening with DX. There will be a lot of DX on the air this week. Stations on the air include French Polynesia, Tanzania, Cameroon, Curacao, British Virgin Islands, Easter Island, Liechtenstein, and St. Pierre and Miquelon. A calendar of DX expeditions can be found at NG3K's announced DX operations list at ng3k.com. And now it's time for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the Solar Flux Index, or SFI, was 156, and the estimated sunspot number was 136, with 8 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has increased. Solar activity has been at low levels in the last 24 hours. The geomagnetic field has been unsettled to minor storm levels in the last 24 hours, and the KP index reached 5 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 729 kilometers a second. Solar activity is predicted to be at low levels with a chance of M-class flares and a slight chance of X-class flares today through Sunday. The geomagnetic field is forecast to be at quiet to active levels today through Sunday. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is at 5% today through Sunday. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are likely, with a predicted probability of 50% today through Sunday. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely, with a 10% chance predicted today through Sunday. It remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see D-layer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page. And to see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from RadioSonde data, visit prompt.kc2g.com. And now let's take a look at some upcoming contests. This weekend brings the technically not a contest, ARRL Field Day we discussed earlier, as well as the UFT QRP contest and the His Majesty of Spain contest on single sideband. As always, the K1 USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And now let's wrap things up with some interesting online radio content. As always, all the links to everything we're about to mention are in the show notes and also at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. Tim, G5TM, talks about how he found a private portable operating location. Michael, KB9VBR, shows how you can use your rig's SWR meter to cut a dipole to length without an analyzer. Kevin, WNDED, and the contest crew talk about the past and present of WRTC. Stuart, VE9CF, talks about integrating Station Master Pro with WSJTX for FT8. Mark, KD7DTS, and Ara, N6ARA, talked to Brian, NR7Y, about his mod for Quansheng HTs to get them on 2-meter CW. Josh, KI6NAZ, attempts hotel portable operation with a 3D printed antenna. Manuel, DL2MAN, shows the app he created to do WinLink completely in a mobile web browser. Stuart, VE9CF, talks about over-the-horizon radar that we sometimes hear on the HF bands. Fred in the Shed takes a look at the Choyong A8W internet radio. The shortwave listener channel shows the final transmission of CHU Canada. Mellow Labs builds his own DIY bench power supply. And Mark, KD7DTS, goes for a hike with Brian, NR7Y, for some 2-meter CW fun. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2, Echo Charlie. Thanks, as always, for joining us. We hope you have a great week ahead. Best 73, and we look forward to seeing you next week.